that you guys are here, here to answer all of your hardest real estate investing questions, whether you're just learning the process or you've got a deal under contract, or heck, you're going through rehab right now and everything's hitting the fan. I'm happy to help. My name is Blake Choisnet, the founder of the Rental Roadmap. The goal is to get you your first cash flowing property in less than 90 days. I started out as a 9 to 5er, just being a good little boy, working real hard, getting degrees and all that stuff, and then realized it didn't quite work out the way that I expected. So ended up going full-time real estate, retired at age 32, built a multi-million dollar portfolio in about 18 months, a self-made millionaire in less than 5 years. And I'm here to tell you, you can do it too. It's not rocket science. It's not art. It's simple and reproducible. And so that's what I want to do for you. So for those of you that are on the Zoom call, you get first dibs. So whether you sent over questions ahead of time or not, I'll answer your questions first. So if you're on the Zoom call, I'll answer your questions first. So put them over in the chat, and I'm happy to help give you guys some direction. If you're not on the Zoom call and you want to be on the Zoom call, you can go to our community, go to blakeshwanet.com/community, or you can go to the school.com, SKOOL.com/rentals2wealth, rentals, the number two, wealth. Join that group and go to the calendar, and you can join our call, and you just hop right in. So with that, we will go ahead and hop in. We do have, what is it, next week? We have the Fed meeting. The Fed's meeting. The overwhelming sentiment is that we'll have a rate reduction, whether it's a quarter point or half point, depends on whether your glass is half full or half empty. So that won't directly impact mortgage rates. And really the market, the whole thing is a really interesting experiment right now, because I think that once rates decline or there is a cut, there will be a mass psychology effect where people will say, okay, now it's a better time to get into the market. So I've been waiting for this. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump in, when really rates have already priced in. I want to say we saw the largest 1 week drop in mortgage rates. I think it was 16 basis points over the course of a week, like last week or the week before. So rates are headed in the right direction, but who knows? Right now is a great time to be buying property, though, because as Warren Buffett said, be fearful when people are greedy, and be greedy when people are fearful. And man, people are fearful right now. It's just it's fear is just the most contagious disease. Super, super contagious. So what we'll do here is we'll go straight into questions. Again, for those of you on the call, if you got questions, you want to put them over in the chat. I'm happy to answer your questions as primary. And otherwise, I'll go through some of the questions that people sent over ahead of time, and we'll get those hit. Boom. All right. Okay, cool. Vanessa sends over a question. I'm still unclear about my understanding. You have private lenders to fund the buy side. I was curious how it works on the refi side. Usually DSCRs require some kind of reserves, 6 months in my experience. How do your students navigate this piece? Really great question. So a couple things here. For those of you that are, Vanessa's asking about a specific model called the Burr model. Burr model's sweet spot is a cash flowing property with low or no money out of your own pocket. That's how I started my portfolio, because frankly, I didn't have any money. And so I needed something that was hyper scalable and provided cash flow. And so that's what it's oriented toward. So if you're like, well, I want passive income, but I really don't want to have to spend 20 hours a week doing this is a really good model for you. If you say, well, I have zero money, zero credit, I'm wondering, how am I going to feed myself next month, and I have a lot of time, it's not the model for you. Maybe wholesaling or being an agent or something more active income is a really good option for you. But the Burr model is kind of the cousin of the flip. Think of the Burr model as a flip, but you actually end up getting to keep it. Sometimes people will call it a flip and hold. So you buy a property, fix it up so that it appreciates in value, and you use that new appreciated value as your 20% down. That's all that you're doing. The bank doesn't care about 20% down. They care about what they will loan on it, which is 80% LTV, or loan to value. So we care about what comes out of our bank account, and so does the bank. They care what comes out of their investment account. So they'll give you 80% LTV. You use that piece, your new value that you've created, as your 20% down, so that you can refinance. And what Vanessa's asking is for the private lenders we understand that they'll fund the purchase and rehab, et cetera. But what about the refi side? So I'll address both sides, Vanessa. On the private lending side of things, what I do is I connect my students to my private money lenders. And so this started out as me just connecting them to the lenders that I have used before. And now it's expanded just because students are doing so many deals. In fact, we just sent out this morning 3 new deals as our deals of the week to the list of private money lenders. And just because we've got more deals. So now I'm raising more private money from other lenders just to be able to fund these students' deals. So they will usually fund up to 100% of rehab purchase price and closing costs, up to 75% of ARV. So if you got a really good deal, you get a lot more funded. You don't have to come out of pocket. If your deal's then you're gonna have to come out of pocket, right? So I don't manage their money. They're responsible for their money. I'm not a broker, and I don't want to be. So I just play matchmaker and say, hey, you guys decide whether or not this works out. So that's on the private lender side of things. When you get to the back end and you refinance, you have a few different options. You can do a conventional loan, or you can do a commercial loan. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, a conventional loan is typically what most people are using. If you're buying a house that you're going to live in, or your friend is buying a house that's a primary residence, you're usually using conventional loans. Those are Freddie and Fannie loans. They are federally insured, so they have a different process. The federal government gets to say, hey, we get an opinion on how you guys underwrite these. They care about the borrower's details. So they care specifically credit score, and they care about your debt to income ratio. So how much money is going out relative to how much is coming in based on required obligations, not like groceries and things like that, but debt that is mortgage related, and it's reported to the primary 3 credit bureaus. That number can't be above 50%. The other thing about credit, so the conventional loans, you get the lowest rate. That's the pro, but the trade-off is it's really hard to deal with. Right? You got to give them a ton of documentation. You got to have 2 years bank statements. You got to have or 2 years tax returns. You got to send them over bank statements. You got to send them a skin graft and a blood sample, and it's so much information. And they're not going to loan to somebody if you're self-employed, you don't have 2 years payment history, they're not going to loan to you. You just can't. Even if it's like a year and 11 months, they're just not going to loan to you. So that's the conventional side. If you want to scale, you need a commercial loan. One of these products is a DSCR loan. I'll explain what that is here in just a minute. But the downfall of the conventional loan for a real estate investor is you can't scale with it. All right. The maximum you can have on your name is 10 doors at any time with a conventional loan. So there are people out there that have more than 10 doors. How are they doing it? They're doing it with commercial money. That commercial money, it can be from a hard money lender. It can be from a bank. It can be from a mortgage lender. It can be from any number of different types of lenders. And they'll have different loan products, whether it's for apartment complexes or a bridge loan or whatever. One of those products is a DSCR loan. And that DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio. And that's a fancy term. I'll explain it here in just a moment. But while conventional lenders care about the borrower, the DSCR lenders care about the asset. They care about the thing that is securing the loan. Because when you're taking out a loan, they're asking 2 questions. How am I making money on this? And how do I prevent myself from losing money on this? That's investing as a whole. Like, how do I make money on this? And then how do I protect my downside? That's what I'm teach my students as well. The upside is painfully clear on real estate. The downside is what you got to protect from. And that's why most people don't jump into it, because one, they don't understand what the downsides actually are, so they can't quantify them. And then if they do understand what the downsides are, they don't know what the magnitude is. And a lot of times they overestimate the magnitude of the risk that they're actually taking. So what I'm teaching them is, how do you protect your downside so that your upside is the only thing that you have? So for a DSCR lender, they're asking those 2 things. How do I make money on this? And how do I protect my downside? Well, the way they make money on this is interest. The way they protect their downside is they get a first position lien on the property, and they're measuring how much money is coming in relative to your mortgage payment. So that's what the DSCR is. Kind of like DTI, but it's DTI for a property almost. So let's say that they're giving you a mortgage payment of $1,000 a month, and your income on that property is $1,100. That's 1,100 divided by 1,000 is your DSCR. So it's the debt, or it's the income coming in divided by the debt service, or your principal and interest, your loan payment. 1,100 over 1,000 is 1.1. Now the question is just, what's a good DSCR? And that will vary based on lender. 1.25 and above is great. Like almost, I can't think of a single lender that would turn that away. I've seen lenders go down to as low as 1.0, some that have gone down to as low as zero point 0.9 over the last 12 to 18 months just because they want more business. Um, but that's what you're looking for. Now, if you're doing a 1.1 DSCR, you've got 1,100 coming in and a payment of $1,000 a month. You, me, and everybody know that's not a cash flowing property, right? Because you have your mortgage payment, but you also have insurance, you got taxes, you got property management, you got toilets, termites, tenants, right? Like if someone flushes a diaper down the toilet, you're screwed, right? Just that one house call from that plumber is gonna, it's gonna be $300 just to be able to unclog that, right? So we know that that's not a cash flowing property. So if you're finding cash flowing properties, debt service coverage ratio should never be an issue for you. It should be above 2 almost every time. I had a lender that said, "Man, Blake, I don't even look at your debt service coverage ratio anymore because it's always like almost 3." The goal for me, and this isn't a hard goal, but what I've found is it correlates with the types of properties that I'm getting that are cash flowing, is my mortgage payment is about 35% of what the rent is. So essentially, I've got a 3x of room. So about another third can go to other payments, or it can go to property management. It both current expenses, like real expenses, or phantom expenses, like things that you're going to have to save for. You just don't know when they're going to happen. HVAC, roof, foundation issues, plumbing, things like that. So that's on the DSCR side. Now, to come back to Vanessa, your question is how do I get the liquidity for 6 months reserves? Different lenders will have different requirements on reserves. You can do a couple things. If you actually have zero money for reserves, let's say you've got zero money in the bank and no money for reserves, I think one there you might consider flipping instead in order to build up some reserves. That's just from a risk profile standpoint. So for a burr, if you some properties look like a really good burr, but then when you get to the back end, they don't cash flow very much because either the property taxes are high, the insurance is high, or the rent is low relative to what you're going to be paying on a monthly basis. But the spread between purchase and rehab and what it's going to be worth is big. That's a really good flip. So that's one thing to consider. The other thing is liquidity requirements are different based on lender. So your best bet, the thing for you to do when you're shopping around for loans, is make everybody compete for your business. You are the pretty girl at the school dance again, right? And you just want everybody to be competing for your business. The way that you do this is you grab email addresses for 20 or 30 lenders and you email them all. And if you don't have those, I'll send everybody on this call my lender vault. In fact, let me get that link and I'll send it over. It's got emails. Uh, da, 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 and if you want to get this link, you need to jump into the Zoom chat and you can have it. I'd ask that if I'm sharing this with you, you don't share this with anybody else. But actually, I need this other link here. Yeah, like this. Copy link. Cool. Boom. All right. So what I would do is I'd go into that lender vault. I'd go to the long-term financing or even the fix and flip. Fix and flip will be fine because usually if you got a fix and flip product, you have a long-term financing product. I'd take all of their emails. There's probably 200 emails in there. I'd put them all in BCC. And then in the subject line, I'd write quote request because it's always going to get more attention because that's a profit center. It's money coming in. If it said technical issue needs support, right? Customer support's just always going to come behind things that drive sales. And I've worked in customer support before when I was on the tech side of things, when I was working my W-2. It's just true. So quote request in order to get some eyes on it. And then in the body of your email, you want to list out what you're looking for. Say, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to refinance a burr. And I'm looking for something that's a long-term loan. So I'm prioritizing cash flow, which means I want a longer term amortization schedule, 30 years if possible. Here are the details of the property and give them the address, give them the estimated value. Don't give them the purchase or the rehab because they don't need to know that. They need to know what it's worth now. Give them the value, the rent, the insurance, the taxes, whether it's rented out now or not. Give them the expected rent And I would probably give them on the high side. If you think it's going to rent for between 12 and 1300, I give them 1300. They'll run their own comps on the back end, but give them all of that information, give them the entity of closing, give them your estimated credit score if it's on your personal name, and all the other details that you think that they might need, and then send that out. When you get responses back, first of all, I would say about a third of them aren't going to respond. And then out of the other chunks, the other two thirds, they'll drop into really three different categories. One is the rates are terrible, they're not even competitive. The second tier is they're fine, but they're not super great. And then the final tier, you'll probably end up with a handful of them that are really competitive rates. At that point, you want them to fight over each other. So if you've got one quote that is awesome, let's say you've got a handful of quotes at 7.5, and you get one quote at 7%, your interest rate. I would email over the other four and say, hey, I've got a quote over here at 7% interest. Can you beat that? Like, is there anything you can do? You got to remember these loan originators, that's a fancy word for salesperson. They are a salesperson. They want to close this. They only get paid if they close a loan. They don't even care if the loan, generally speaking, they don't even care if the loan is good for the business. If the business takes a loss on it, they want to get paid because they want to feed their family. So they'll get paid off of the origination points and some of the other ancillary fees, but they cannot give you and will not ever give you their best deal right up front. Never. They will never, a loan originator, they'll never do that. It's like, that's like going to a used car lot and going up and say, hey, what can I buy this car for? And they tell you, well, this is what we paid for it. This is what we'll sell it to you for. They're always going to try it. They're going to set the ceiling and say, well, this is the amount that we'll give it to you for, right? And then you got to negotiate it down. So the way to get free money is to make them compete. So take your best offer and say, hey, I've got a 7% interest rate over here. Can you compete with that? Then if they end up coming down to 7% and now their closing costs are lower than your original offer, then I'll say, hey, I've got another comparable loan over here, but their closing costs are way lower than yours. What can you do? I wouldn't say, can you match their closing costs? Just say, what can you do? Because they might be able to decrease their rate. So they could decrease their rate, they could decrease closing costs, but that's what I recommend doing on that side of things. You might ask them like, what are your liquidity requirements in that initial email, so that you know exactly what their liquidity requirements are. If for some reason you can't find a lender that will match your liquidity requirements, you can have someone loan you that money. So you could have them loan that money to you, and it be essentially like a reserves loan for, I don't know, 3 months or something like that. It's, they act as a gap lender or a private lender or something like that. That's one way to do it. Another way would be to have a partner on the deal and have it owned under an LLC where you both have an ownership interest in that LLC. But you want to make sure to split the ownership of that LLC appropriately. If literally all you're using is their credit and their cash reserves, they don't need half of the deal. All right, they need probably 20%. There's a partnership ownership model that is, it's five things and it's 20% for each thing that you bring to the table. So of the people that are coming to the table, if there's two people, here's how it breaks down. One is the person that finds the deal. All right, so that's 20%. Another one is the person bringing the money. Another is the person managing the deal. Another is there's two more. Maybe it's credit or experience. I'll have to come back to it. But essentially, if you're all you're doing is you're providing credit and liquidity, 20% is fair. But if you're bringing way more to the table, you deserve more of that property. All right. So that those are a couple ways that you can work around that. Hopefully that helps you on that side of things. Da-da-da-da. Okay. Question was more looking into scaling. Able to jump in, have a little certainly, yeah. Yeah. So as far as scaling goes, it's only going to get better. Or when I say better, I mean simpler, easier. Because if you're looking at conventional loans, your DTI, let's say your DTI is at 50%, but if you buy a cash flowing property, your DTI is going to become more favorable because let's say your mortgage payment's $500 a month, but you're renting it out for $1,400 a month. Even if you're at 50%, now you just added the rent to your income and the $500 a month to your debt, which means now you're down at 45% or 40%. So it's going to become more favorable because you have more income coming in. So that's on one side. On the DSCR thing, they don't care about, they're not looking at your whole portfolio and saying you need to have 6 months reserves of all of your payments forever. They're looking at that one property. That's all they care about. So you could have 1,000 properties that are cash flowing, and they say you got to have $6,000 in your bank account. If you have less than $6,000 in your bank account, you own 1,000. That's a problem because something's going to go wrong, right? So from a scalability standpoint, you're golden. Now, whenever you do, if you're talking about scaling with respect to private money, like the how many, sometimes my students when they're new, they'll say like, how many deals can I pull out at a time? Like, what do you think? And my recommendation is use the private money lenders for your first two, three, 5 deals. At that point, you want to be raising your own private money. Now, you can continue to use the private money lenders. That's totally fine. But you're going to find more money and better priced money, like better terms by raising your own money. Part of the reason that new lenders don't or new investors don't raise private money is one, they don't know how. But then two, even if they got in touch with the right person, they don't know how to actually they don't know how to close it because that person says, well, I tell you what, Vanessa, I would love to lend money to you. I'm thrilled to do that. I trust you. But since you've never done a deal, why don't you just do 5 or 6 deals and then come back to me and we'll get started, right? It's because you don't know what you're doing. So when someone's looking to evaluate, do I trust you? Trust has two components, two and only two components, character and competence. So character, are we mutually aligned? Like, are you going to throw me under the bus? Or do you have good intentions? Not, are you going to put me in front of yourself? Like, are you going to lay down in traffic for me? But are you going to treat me nobly, honorably? The other one is competence. Do you know what you're doing? For example, my brother is my best friend. I trust him with my life. I do not trust him with brain surgery. If I needed brain surgery, I would not have my brother operate on my brain. He doesn't know anything. He's an idiot when it comes to brain surgery. But he's a great father and he's a great man. So if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I would give him my kids. I'd give him my sons because I think he can make them into good men and he'd be a good father. So character and competence. The problem with new investors is they don't have any competence. And even if they do have some competence, it's not learned competence. It's not in the trenches competence. It's the same type of competence as like me telling you how to get a six pack. I don't have a six pack. So yet. All right. So if I'm telling you how to get a six pack, I can tell you eat leaves and do sit-ups. All right. Like, but that's not going to help you in the practical day to day as far as habit formation and discipline and how to navigate Thanksgiving and Christmas whenever your mom's stuffing is on the table. Right. All of that stuff. So you need the experience. And so with new investors, they don't know what to say at that point. Whereas my students, you've got the private money lenders at first. And to be clear, you can raise private money without having any experience. 100% you can. I've done it. I know tons of people that have done it, but it does get easier once you do have experience because then you can say, well, here's my credibility, right? Here's my street cred. I've done this. I've paid all of my private lenders back, and they've each made 18%, 20%, whatever it is. And you can even have a slide deck say like, hey, here's the previous experience that I've done. But then once you've got a few under your belt, you should really be raising your own money because it gets way, way easier. If you raise $100,000 and you know that that's earmarked for you, it's not earmarked for a group of people. Now you know 100% that that money's going to be there for you. Then that person, when you pay them off, Jane Doe loaned you $100,000 for a property and she makes 18% on it in 3 months, 18% APR. She's going to come back. She's going to be playing mahjong with her gals at the local senior center, and she's going to say, "Man, Vanessa's just making me so much money." And her friends are going to say, "Can you hook us up?" Because we're making 0.23% in our savings account. Like, we'd love to make good money. And then you're going to have access to $400,000, and then it only grows from there. So, raising your own private money is really, really key. You can continue to use the private money lenders, but I really recommend raising private money. Now, and that's coming at my own disadvantage because the private money lenders, in order to be a part of our network, they pay a referral fee. So for every single loan that they do, we get a percentage of that. It just as a referral fee, whether it's 0.5%, a 1/4%, 1%, whatever it is. So I'm saying this to my own detriment. All right, like it's a value to me. It's an income stream for me if people continue to use the private money lenders that are in the program, that are part of the program. But I think it's in your best interest to raise your own private money because it's more scalable and it makes you more autonomous. The more you're tied to relying on somebody else, the less control you have over your business. All right. And so that's one thing that makes the rental roadmap different is I've done this before. Like I'm not going to dangle the carrot out in front of everybody in order with the goal of like hyper monetization. My goal is to recreate real estate investors, like make real estate investors so that God forbid I get hit by a bus tomorrow. You know exactly how to do this down the road. You know exactly how to do it. And the only reason you stay a part of the community or you continue to do, you do in-person events or whatever is because it adds so much value to your life and your business that it's a no-brainer. But it's not because you can't do it without me. That's my fundamental approach to education and training. So that's what I'd say on that side. Now, the one additional, and then we'll get to the other questions. The one additional thing I'll say on scaling is when you start getting to, so far we've made the assumption that your deals are like $100,000 deals, $200,000 deals as far as ARV is concerned. When you start getting to larger asset classes that are $500,000, a million, 2 million, a private lender typically is not going to lend all of that money because if someone's got $2 million to loan, what's the likelihood that they're going to loan it all on one deal, one BRRRR deal? It's pretty low. What I've found is the sweet spot for private money lenders is someone with say 100 grand to $1 million, and they want to put that money into the market and make it work. The reason it doesn't go above that is, I had this experience with one guy I found early on in my investing journey where he had a ton of money and I was super pumped. I was like, man, this is like the hockey stick. This is the moment where I look back and I'm like, that was what changed the game for me. It turned out to not be the case because he said, honestly, dude, your average deal size is just too small. Like I don't want to be loaning out in $70,000 chunks. Like it's way too much work. It's like you and I, you might see something and say like, oh, I could buy this candy bar for 50 cents and then sell it for $1. I mean, that's 2x, right? Like you're making, if you could double your money, that's awesome. But the problem is the volume would have to be so high for it to make any impact on your life. It's just not worth the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And so that's the same case for them. So once you start getting into the 5, 10, $100 million range, they're just like, I don't want to lend on that small amount. So that's one component. The other is once you get up there, because of the range of $1 million to $100,000, there lots of times they won't have the entire liquidity for a larger asset class deal. In order to take down that deal, what you got to do is you go to a hard money lender to get 90% of it covered, and then you bring in a private lender to fund the gap, which is called gap lending. So let's say that private money lender typically lends you $100,000 for a deal. You purchase it for 70, it needs $30,000 of rehab, and it appraises at 160. So they've got $100,000 to loan to you. Now you go get $1 million deal, right? So you're all in at $1 million, and it's going to appraise at 2 million, or let's say 1.6 to use the same ratios. You borrow the million, they'll give you from a hard money lender, but they will give you 90% loan to cost. So that's 900 from them. Now you got to come up with the other 100,000. You bring in that private lender and you say, hey, I want you to lend the gap for me on this. There's a few things that change. One is they get a junior position lien. They don't get the senior lien because the hard money lender gets that. So they're secondary lien, which means it's a little bit more risk for them. They're paid out second. So the rates might go up. The other thing is some hard money lenders don't like gap lending. So I would let them know ahead of time. If they don't like it, you can either choose to find another hard money lender, or what you can do is sign a promissory note ahead of time with that individual, and they wire you the money. And then after everything closes, 5 to 7 days after everything closes, then you go back to title and say, hey, will you go ahead and file this lien for me? And file this lien for this promissory note for the gap lender. So that's what I'd say as far as scaling is concerned. But great questions, Vanessa. All right, Charles. Da, 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 da. Business credit card to fund my deals. Awesome. Cool. Sweet. Yeah. Check out the Built MasterCard. Great. How hard is it to find deals right now that will cash flow and hit those 2 to 3x DSCR numbers? They're all over the place. They really are. I mean, finding deals is a volume game. And so you want volume, but you also want the right type of volume. So for example, right now, we've got 2 little boys. I've got a 3-month-old and a 3-year-old. They're really both grown out of all their clothes. And so if they're both grown out of all their clothes and my lovely wife, Brittany, says, sweetie, I need you to go get an outfit for Parker or for Brandon. If I go to Home Depot because it's closer to my house, like what's my luck? I'm screwed. There's no way I'm coming home with anything helpful. I could be the most loving, affectionate, caring father that's really good at being a father. I'm not coming home with anything good. But instead, if I just went to Walmart or I went to Target or I went to Carter's or Babies R Us or whatever, or I could come home with something actually helpful. So your intention doesn't matter, your execution matters. So there's two things on this, Mike. One is you got to have volume. So it's a volume play. It's not, you can't just find one source of deals. You have to diversify the type of deals or the sources of deals coming in. And then two, they've got to be the right type of deals. So for example, if you've got enough for 20% down, then great, the MLS is perfect for you. The challenge with the MLS, I mean, the challenge of the MLS is the drawback of the MLS, or the challenge of the MLS is the benefit of the MLS in that it's ubiquitous. It's open to everybody. Everybody's got access to it, whether it's directly through an agent and they set up a listserv for you, or if it's syndicated through things like Zillow, Realtor, Redfin, Trulia, whatever it is. You've got access to all the deals in the market. One of the things that's nice about the MLS is after COVID, COVID forced the change that more off-market properties or more distressed properties are going through the MLS now than they used to. It used to be the MLS was just prim and proper properties. They were all in good shape. They weren't going to take anything distressed. Now, some people will put them on the MLS even if they're distressed, and so that's helpful. But it's being sent out to so many people, and as everybody knows, with increased demand means increased price if supply stays the same. So in that case, if you got 30,000 people seeing every single deal, you're going to have to pay more for it. So if it's on the MLS or it's on Zillow or Realtor or Redfin or Trulia, you're just going to have to pay more for it. So you need to also find deals that are off market. All right. So there is the more work that you put into finding the deal, generally the better price that you can get. The challenge is how much work do you want to put into finding deals, right? There's three deal channels. There's three ways to find deals. One is on market. The second is off market. And the third is direct to seller. So on market is things like the MLS, right? Again, the benefit is everybody's got access to it. Drawback is everybody's got access to it. Even these schmucks over there, right? They're driving the price up. So they might not even know what they're doing and they just want to get their first deal and they don't even care if it cash flows because they just want to get some experience under their belt and they're happy to overpay. All right. So that's on that side. Now, off market, there are a bunch of off market tools like Investor Lift, but one of the primary values or one of the more valuable components of off market is working through wholesalers. What wholesalers do is they go knock on the doors, they go call people, they do the marketing, they do all of that stuff so that you don't have to, and then they take a cut of it. And that's baked into the price. So you don't even know what they've got it under contract for. So they'll talk to a seller, get it under contract for say $30,000. Then they come to you and me and they say, I got this awesome property for 50 grand and they make 20 grand off of it. And you want to pay them 20 grand. You don't know what they have it under contract on, but if 50 works, you want to pay them as much as possible. You don't care if they got it under contract for $1 or 49.9. You want to pay them as much as possible because the next time they're going to come straight to you and be like, hey, I've got this deal. Before I send it out to my list, you want it? And they're going to be thinking of you, right? Not only that, but it pays to feed their family so that they can keep doing this so that you don't have to. That's part of the scalability and outsourcing and delegating, letting other people do your stuff, do the critical tasks for you and for your business. So you want wholesalers to do that. There are also some tools that wholesalers use that can be really valuable, like Investor Lift is one of them. It's essentially a marketing tool or a marketing site for for wholesalers who are trying to get more visibility. So if they put their deal on there and you find that deal through Investor Lift gets a percentage of it, or you have to pay a subscription, a monthly subscription to be able to list a certain amount of properties. So they make money on that end. So that's the wholesaler side of things. The final is direct to seller. I don't recommend new investors do direct to seller because it's a completely new skill to learn. It's a discrete skill to learn. There's some science in it. There's some art. There's some essential sales skills that you got to learn, and I think it's more effective for your momentum to go through wholesalers or MLS. Then once you have a few deals and you have some income coming in, then you can start doing direct to seller because the reality of direct to seller is you have to have a marketing budget. You got to have at least $500 a month to be able to put into marketing. So whether that's direct to seller, ringless voicemails, RVMs, text messages, postcards, pay per click, Google ads, any of those things, you're gonna have to pay for on the front end. and hope that you get something back. So, for example, postcards, they've got like a 1% response rate. If you send it, you spend 500 bucks on postcards and send out, I don't know, 500 postcards, call it $1 a card. You're probably going to get five responses, and maybe two of them are an old crotchety guy saying, "How'd you get my information?" Right? And maybe one of the other ones pans out. But even then, you've got to know how to be able to close them, and you can't close them at a price that won't work. Right? You got to close them at a price that works for you and for them. So there's a lot of skill involved there. So what I recommend is let somebody else do that until you've got the cash flow on a monthly basis to then be able to do that. Now, the one thing that I will say that is helpful on this front to get direct to seller is if you want to go direct to seller, but you don't want to have the budget, what you can do is just something practical is look at Facebook Marketplace. Any property that's for rent, like, what's the biggest headache for a landlord? It's a vacant property, right? You're trying to find somebody to pay you, but they're not paying you. No one's paying you, but you still have to pay your mortgage. That's the biggest headache. So if you can target that person and say, I want to look for landlords that have vacant properties and they're just such a headache that they will get rid of them and they'll sell it to me. And then I can come in and buy it, take that headache off of their hands, and we both are happy. So you can find properties on Facebook Marketplace that are listed as rent, and you just reach out to them and say, Hey, I'm interested in this property. Would you consider selling? And if you do that, that's a volume play. You do that 100 times, I bet you get 10 people that respond and say they have some level of interest in it. Whether they say yes 100% or no, doesn't matter. It's a volume play. And the whole point of this is when I say volume play, what I mean is you got to get a certain amount of no's. Getting a no is not a failure. It's like, when people talk about failure, it's we really just throw around the word failure. If I told you that there was gold in your backyard and it was right under this stake, and I put a stake in the ground, I said, There's a big old, that huge boulder of gold under there," and then you started digging, and you took one shovel, the spade went into the dirt, and you pulled it out, and you didn't see the gold. Is that failure because you didn't get to the gold? No, you're moving things out of the way. That's how all of these tasks are. You know that there's gold on the other side. You just don't know how many digs it's going to take. And so when you send out a message and they say no, cool, awesome, moving on, find the next one. And at some point, when you systematize enough, you'll find there's a certain number that it will take you. So if it's, I need 100 reach outs to get one deal. Now you know, okay, well, if my monthly goal is to get 10 deals, I got to do a lot of reach outs, right? I got to do, what is it, 10,000 reach outs, right? Or 1,000 reach out, right? You've got to outbound. You got to get to the point where you're messaging that many people. And so the no's don't matter, right? And you just keep messaging. So that's what I mean by a volume play. Boom. Yeah, Charles says he uses wholesalers to bring deals all the time. Totally worth it. I even lead with this with wholesalers. When I'm talking to wholesalers, I'll say, man, I can't wait to pay you. I love paying wholesalers fees. I love paying assignment fees because they talk to a lot of investors and a lot of armchair investors that are like, why do you deserve to say they got the property under contract for 10 grand and they're selling it for 60? And then finally, at the very end, the investor sees that they're making 50 grand on this deal. And they say, why do you deserve 50 grand just for finding this deal? Right. And they try and renegotiate the price because the value is not in that the value isn't in how much they did for it. It's in their expertise. And they negotiated it. They found that person, they negotiated it, and now they're being able to sell it for more. Right. So that's just what it is. So what I tell them is I say, I love paying assignment fees. I will pay you the highest assignment fee that I can stand, that I can withstand from a business standpoint. I'm not going to haggle. I'm not going to over negotiate because if you over negotiate, people know the wholesalers know every single time they talk with you, it's going to be a headache. All right. And it also gives more power to your words because when you say, look, I don't want to go back and forth and everything on this. You've got to list it at 70. I would need it at 62 for this to make sense. All right. And if they say no, it doesn't hurt your feelings. You say, okay, great. It's a number decision. This isn't an emotional decision. It's just a number decision. So 62, no, doesn't work for you. All right. Sounds good. I've had so many students that right now, wholesalers are very proud of what they're listing. So generally, I would say 99.9% of the time in today's market, you should not be offering what they're listing it at. You should not be offering what they list. That is the ceiling. You should only be offering under what they listed at. And so what this looks like practically is some wholesalers say, I'm listing this for 70. And a student of mine says, man, I would need that at 44 for that to make sense. So I guess I'm just not going to offer. And what I tell them is still make an offer because one, they're going to see your name they're going to see your name again, whether it's text, Facebook message, email. Make them an offer because you want them to see your name, so they keep coming back to you and they know that you're motivated. You're ready to buy. But the way that you pitch it can be considerate and thoughtful instead of saying you're out of your mind, you're bonkers, you're an idiot, you're $70,000 is not worth near that much. The reality is there's different models. And some models it might actually make sense for $70,000. If they're going to rent it out by room to industrial store like I don't know, to some AI facility that has a bunch of money, they might be able to make it. Maybe they do short-term rentals and it's they're going to put a bunch of money into it and it's just the premier experience and they can monetize it that way. Great, awesome. That's not my model. And so what I tell them is, hey, I know you got this listed at 60 or at 70. I really appreciate you sending this over for my model, and I would need this closer to 44. And so that might not make sense for you. So if it does, and I'm wrong, let me know. But otherwise, keep sending over deals, and we'll find a way to make money together. All right. Then one of a couple things happens. Usually they'll respond, or sometimes they won't respond. If they do respond, it's usually like, yeah, that doesn't make sense, but I'll keep sending you deals. Every now and again, I put this at like one every 20 times, yeah, or so. I do this about 2 to 4 weeks later. They'll come back around and say, hey, what do you think about doing 48? All right. They'll come back and ask you if you're still interested, which means you are the only option for them. So you're not going to say, okay, I can do 48. You're going to say, I was being honest with you. I'd have to get it closer to 44. All right. So every now and again they'll come back to you, but that's what I tell the wholesalers is I love paying assignment fees. All right. And a deal as we speak that the wholesaler and seller are in breach of contract. I'm reading to close. Seller wants to deal with me directly, which puts me in a better buying situation. What doc should Okay. So Michael, as I'm reading it, you're saying that the wholesaler and the seller, their contract has expired, or it's either expired or they're in breach of contract. If they're in breach of contract, you got to figure out whether or not who's breached the contract. If the wholesaler has breached the contract, you're fine. You can just deal with the seller directly. If the seller breached the contract, you could still deal with them and go ahead and buy it, but you got to make sure you get title insurance because if the wholesaler does pursue litigation and sues that seller, they could have a right to that property. And any property you close on, you should have title insurance anyway. But in order to negotiate with the seller, you've got to make sure that you haven't signed some type of NDA. So some people might phrase it this way and say, well, if I've got a deal from a wholesaler and I know that they're going to get a markup on this, why not just go look at public data and find the seller and contact them directly? Well, one is because it's bad form. But like if you do that, that wholesaler will never send you any deals ever again. But the other thing is they are contractually obligated to the wholesaler, and usually in their agreement, it will stipulate some, if they're even reasonably experienced, it'll stipulate something that the seller cannot negotiate with people on the property. And even if they do, if that person heard about the property from the wholesaler for the first time, then they still get the closing. They still get the assignment fee. So in this particular situation, you can go ahead and negotiate with the seller because you don't have any liability. All right, you can have a conversation with them as long as you haven't signed an NDA or non-disclosure agreement. If it's a group like I don't know New Western, the largest wholesaler in the United States, they have an NDA that's really pretty protected, and you could be exposing yourself to about $25,000 of damages. So if you haven't signed anything with the wholesaler, you have no responsibility to the wholesaler, especially if they are the one that breached the agreement. The seller is the one that's got to figure out what they want to do on that front. So if you negotiate directly with the seller, you get under contract on something and then you close on it, just make sure you have title insurance and you should be good. All right, cool. Mike, happy to help. Let me just make sure. Charles, two boys, too. What age are the boys? Moved to Killeen to buy real estate and house hack. I spent about a decade in Austin. I had some buddies up in Killeen in the Army. And I tell you what, man, one of them was on tour for 9 months. And when he came back, we went to his, we were all single at the time. We went to his like welcome home deal. Our whole community group did. And man, I haven't, that's probably about as close to heaven as you can get on this side because everybody's so happy to see their loved ones, their husbands, their fathers. It's just it's such a happy experience. Colleen, uh, bad tenants are challenged. Yeah, Colleen and other markets that are just only predicated on like a military base present some challenges because if the economy changes, if it's only one economic sector, things can change really quickly. If it's not diversified enough, then you have some risk there. I think of Tulsa. I'm originally from just south of Tulsa, a city called Bixby. And Tulsa in the 90s was what Houston is now for oil and gas. But the problem is it was just oil and gas. Like there wasn't an entrepreneurship scene. There wasn't healthcare. Like from an economic standpoint, that is a fundamental part of the economy. And so whenever the oil and gas market tanked in the 90s, it punched it in the mouth. It punched the whole market in the mouth. So yeah, you have some issues there with things like Colleen. Let's see. Rents are coming down and tenants are reaching code enforcement for small issues. Insurance costs, is it still worth it to invest in real estate? My short answer to this, GP, is yes, it's 100% still worth it to invest in real estate. Now, I'll take some of the things that you said, and then Vanessa, I'll hit up on your question on Section 8. Rents are coming down. This depends on markets. In high appreciation markets like major metros, like the Bay Area, Austin, Texas, Portland, Manhattan, then yes, rents are coming down. Um, but in most markets, most cash flow markets, rents are not coming down. They're either flat or up 3 to 5%, depending on the market. So this comes back to you got to be investing in the right market. So if your goal is cash flow, then you can't invest in Austin or Portland. That doesn't mean they're bad markets. It just means that they've got different goals, right? It goes back to my Home Depot analogy that I mentioned earlier. If I'm going to look for baby clothes and I go to Home Depot just because it's closer to me, I'm screwed. And I could be really well intentioned, but it doesn't matter your intention. It matters your execution. So you got to find a really good cash flowing market in order to do that. And your short the quick version on how to find a cash flow market. I would typically they're between 50,000 and 250,000 people. And you need to have a diversified economy with with job growth or at least flat or above. And the key thing is finding the cash flow profile for the market. So the best way to find this is I call it the top down method is go find the median home price and the median rent for a 3 bed and do a rent to price ratio. If that rent to price ratio is zero point 0.8 or below, don't waste your time with it. If it's above zero point 0.8, it might be a cash flow market. And then at that point, you want to go look at actual data inside that market called the bottom up method. Find at least 30 different properties and do the rent to price ratio on that property. This requires you running some comps on the property, and you are knee deep in the data, but it gives you real time data of what's on the market right now for will it cash flow. You do that with 30 properties, you remove the outliers, and then you get an average. If it's above 1%, you're good to go. That means like essentially the average deal in that market for an investor for a rental property is going to be a 1% rent to price ratio. And you're not going to get deals that stink. You're going to get the good ones, right? So you're looking at 1.2, 1.3, 1.5% rent to price ratios, and those will cash flow. And those are all over the place. Yeah, Atlanta, yeah, that's a larger market. I mean, you might see better options in places like Macon, Macon, Georgia, just because it's more of a cash flow market. Atlanta's just not a cash flow market. All right. Thoughts on Section 8? Section 8 can be awesome. I'd say 40, maybe 50% of my doors are Section 8. There's some common misconceptions with Section 8 because you say, what are your thoughts on Section 8? Other people might say like, is Section 8 really worth it? Or they say, well, I want to avoid Section 8. Like, how do I avoid Section 8? Section 8 is just a tool. You can optimize for it. There are some people out there that'll say you should only do Section 8. I don't agree with that. Section 8 can be really helpful. And here's why. Because Section 8 and HUD, think of those as synonyms. Section 8 is the section of essentially legislation that says the federal government can pay for somebody's housing. The HUD, Housing and Urban Development Committee is how that's actually walked out, how it's instituted. So they have, you've got Housing and Urban Development Committee, and then they've got all of their kind of the report ups, and you have your local public housing authority. So HUD will get money to be able to pay for people's housing, and then they say, all right, this metro area, you get X amount of dollars. And that housing authority says, hey, for a 3-bed house, this is what we're paying. For a 5-bed house, this is what we're paying. In fact, for those of you on the call, I'm going to send this over. This is the link for da, 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 da. Where is it? Let's see. I'm going to send you guys the link for, got a new laptop, so it's not auto-populating, but let me go find it real quick. Here, links in our community. I include this HUD and Section 8 links. Yes, right here. So data sets 2025. Perfect. All right, this is coming over in the chat. Boom. You can click there and find your metro, and it will tell you exactly what the fair market rent is for that area. The actual number for your specific property is usually going to be within 10% up or down of this number. And the best person to tell you exactly what that number is going to be your property manager. But that's the nice thing about Section 8 is you know exactly what you can rent it for. But it's not perfect because sometimes it's really great for a property, sometimes it's bad. And here's the situation that you could be in. In my market, in the Southwest, those properties are really nice. Great school districts, nicer builds, newer builds, great condition, more like A-B neighborhoods. In the Northeast, it's not as nice. So it's less affluent, not as good schools, not as great amenities. So if a 3-bedroom house rents for 1,500 with HUD, but on the fair market, you could get 2,200 in the Southwest. It doesn't make any sense. But in the Northeast, for a 3-bed, if HUD will give you 1,500, but I could only reasonably rent it for 1,100 bucks a month on the fair, like the open market, if I just like posted it, then that makes a lot of sense because someone with a HUD voucher, it's not going to affect them. They just go ahead and they'll happily pay 1,500 bucks a month because it's coming out of the HUD budget. So that's one. The other thing is, when people say, beware of HUD, HUD, they're going to torch your house. The reality is, that's more fear mongering. Like it comes from people that haven't done what you want to do. So when you have people that are trying to talk you out of something or talk you off a ledge or say like, no, you shouldn't do that. You cannot listen to them if they aren't actively pursuing where you're wanting to go or have already gone there because they're speaking out of insecurity or ignorance. In fact, I have one of my favorite quotes is right here, this plaque right here. My sister got me that when I became an entrepreneur. And it is Teddy Roosevelt's "In the Arena" quote. And essentially what he's communicating is if you are in the arena and you're the one that's actually got dirt on your face and blood, sweat, and tears, if you win, awesome. And if you lose, at least you know that you were in the arena. So when someone from the stands or someone outside the arena tells you how to do the thing that's in the arena, what do they know? They don't know. It's like, like if I've got a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old, and my older sister has an 11-year-old, and it's a girl, and like she's starting to get into that middle school range, right? Like, and I say, oh, you should parent her this way. What do I know about parenting a teenage girl as opposed to my 2 sons that are 3 and 3 months? Right? It's just, and you don't have to be a jerk about it. You just say like, they just don't know. I remember, my younger sister years ago, I was going through a hard time in my life in 2017, was just on fire. And my younger sister was trying to be really, really sweet. She was high school or so. And she said, I know exactly how you feel. And she talked about, this relationship that she had with this boy and how it didn't work. And, but they had really only kind of like talked for like a couple weeks, and I was like, she just doesn't know what it's like to have to figure out how am I going to pay my bills and how am I going to pay my mortgage and how am I like going to manage my own mental, emotional life and how am I going to like all of that stuff, deal with failure and stuff in an adult life. Like she just doesn't know. And so in situations like that, when people saying like, don't do Section 8, if they haven't done it or they're not actively working toward it, you just can't listen to them. So then that's why community is so important, whether it's the Rentals to Wealth community or you're part of the 90-day rental roadmap community. Being around other people that are doing this is really, really important, because your worst case scenario is that you convince yourself that real estate doesn't work and you give up on the greatest generational like wealth creator in the history of the world. And just by convincing yourself that real estate doesn't work, because you listen to people that it was never going to work for them and they just gave up on it. Right. So get into the community, get connected with some people. Heck, find an accountability partner, get connected with people in order to help you move forward. Because most of you guys don't have people in your life that are just like closing on deals and it's just normal. Like that was the case for me. I didn't know anybody that closed on real estate or had multiple properties. But heck, I didn't even know many people that own their own property. And to have 10, 20, 40, 100 doors was insane to me. That was, you know, that was like $1 billion. Like you just don't really even know what that even means. All right. And so then when I got in a community with other people, it was like, oh, this is just normal. It's normal for some people. So that's what I'd say on the Section 8 side of things. Uh, da, 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 da. All right, we got just 2 minutes left. I'm just going to give you a few quick answers. GP, is it a good idea to buy properties with septic, crawl space, drainage issues, roof issues, water about 1964? Okay, okay. So as far as the numbers, I'd have to put it in the calculator. But generally, I don't have any deal breakers. So some people will say, I don't buy septic properties. I don't buy properties with roof issues or foundation issues, whatnot. From my vantage point, it's just a number. You can pay somebody to fix that. So if it's a roofing issue, get a roofer out there and bid it. If it's a foundation issue, get a foundation expert out there to bid it. And then that's a number. You put that into a calculator, the numbers either math or they don't. And so that you've got to have a metric defined for what a good deal is versus a bad deal. And if it maths, great. If it doesn't, just say no, or you adjust your purchase price, what you're offering, and to say, like this is what I can get it for. All right, Lori, found a good cash flow in rural Louisiana. Hard to get financing. Lori, I sent over the deal, the lender vault. I'm going to send you my lender vault, and go watch this replay where I talk about getting quotes. You can absolutely find a lender to fund that deal. There are tons. If it's a good deal, there are tons of lenders out there that would love to finance it. Okay, I want to say I got everybody. Awesome. Cool. All right. We'll go ahead and let's see. Okay, Laura, you had a question earlier. Would it be easier to get DSCR or commercial loan if I create an LLC first? You can create an LLC first, but if you're going to do a commercial loan or a DSCR loan, it needs to be under an LLC. In fact, I'm going to send you blakeshwaney.com/LLC, because I've got a partner on this front that everybody in our community, they give you just an absolutely insane deal on an LLC. It's Prime Corporate Services. They will give you an LLC at cost for them. So it's at cost, meaning state filing fees and their hard costs. I mean, it's probably worth $2,500, $3,000. They'll give you a full hour of consultation, but they'll set everything up for you. They'll give you operating agreement. They'll get you your EIN. They'll give you all of that stuff. So use that link and go set up some time with them, in the next couple days, I guess, and get an LLC spun up. It is dirt easy to form an LLC. Like you just talk to them and they'll get you taken care of. But you can go ahead and start closing on a deal on a DSCR loan without an LLC, and you can form the LLC in the time that it takes to just close on the deal. So you don't have to have the LLC. I think what people get wrong is it's not hard to start a business. It's hard to make money with a business. All right, you could go out and you could start 100 LLCs. It's just easy to start an LLC. But the hard part is making money with the business. If you figure out how to make money, the LLC is just an operational, it's like a stepping stone. Like it's not the end goal. It's just kind of part of the process. So boom. Okay, cool. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up because I know we're at 1 o'clock. If you guys have additional questions, send them over in the community, in the Rentals to Wealth community, get some answers. And then anytime you post a question, spend a little bit of time, go answer for every question that you ask, go answer 3 questions, or at least comment on someone's post and say, yeah, that's a good question. I wonder what that answer is too. That way you are now following that post. And when someone does answer, you'll get an answer. You'll actually learn, as well. But so go ask these questions in the community, and I'll be in that community as well. So we'll do another Q&A next month. I've toyed around with the idea of doing a couple of these per month if they're helpful. So if you got additional feedback on it, you want to go post in the Rentals to Wealth group, Sounds great. We'll get you some questions answered. Other than that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thanks for joining this week's or this month's Q&A, our live Q&A. If you want more stuff like this, go to blakeswanee.com/community, or that's a pointer that'll point you to school.com, SKOOL.com/rentals2wealth. Rentals, the number 2, and wealth. And join that group where you can find a bunch of community, other people trying to do the same stuff, bunch of free training. I'm trying to give it all away for free just to help you guys make progress. As you guys have any questions, send them over in the community. We'll get